Hi, I'm Ellen Brewer. I'm chairman of the Trinity Reformation Committee. And as Pastor had mentioned, council had passed in the early of 2017 to the purpose of creating a committee to look at ways of reforming our church. We were charged to form a committee. This is the motion that's in here. It's on page 23, to form a committee for the specific purpose of planning to grow the church. This committee shall be called Trinity Reformation Committee to plan and strategize for long term. And it shall include the senior pastor and the president. I'm going to highlight some of the things that are in here, but I'm also going to speak in terms of from where the line of thinking of the Trinity Lutheran, the committee itself. Great group of people on this committee with a lot of good hearts and a lot of good ideas. We started looking at our demographics, and right out the gate, one of the things that was mentioned to us in the committee was, every single day, 5 days a week, just about all year long, we have, if we have 63 students in the school, we've got, a number of families that are literally stepping foot on our property. We have a number of families that are stepping foot on the preschool. And we should target those families and those people who do not have church homes. Our congregation is getting older, and the committee feels that to grow this church, we need to focus on the younger, the millennials, and those who are young with families. Anywhere from 25 to 40 is kind of like the age group that we were focusing, because that's roughly what we're looking at in terms of what's stepping on our campus every single day. The question becomes, how do we get them to move from the school to come over here on Sunday morning? And that's the challenge, because as you can see in the budget, our offerings are down. And it's through these offerings that we need to bring up to help sustain the corporation and not continually rely year after year on the preschool bailing us out. So we went in with that idea. We felt that that would be the first place. So that was one of the reasons why we made the decision and voted. We brought it to council retroactively, but was to change the time of the Lenten services, because it was brought to our attention that many people with young children will not come to the dinner or come to the services because the hour is too late. So we backed up the time. It was met with consternation by some members of the congregation because we made it early, and it was a negative for those that didn't get off work in time. But it was a step to introduce our church and some of the things we have to the people across the street. And there were people that from the schools that did come and participate in the Lenten services and the Lenten suppers. So with that in mind, we could and Wednesday nights being already on the people's calendar, so to speak, the committee recommended that we continue with a Wednesday night supper and Bible study. And so the Wednesday night family nights were started as a result of that. And we've had 2 sessions, a spring session and a fall session, and it's been very successful. I believe it's going to continue. It's going to start up again right after Lent, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think with Lent coming up in 3 weeks and that whole series, it'll be again after Easter. So those were 2 things that the committee started. Simultaneously, we did a questionnaire. And we got somewhere, I can't remember, but somewhere around 45 responses from our membership and the questionnaire. And we poured through that. We analyzed it. We read every single comment. In our meetings, if you wrote a comment, no matter what it said, it was read aloud in our meetings. We tallied all of the responses. And one of the things that came out from that questionnaire is there's 2 areas at our church that the Trinity Reformation Committee was determining to look at. One was outreach, and the other is worship. So the first place that we looked at was outreach. What can we do to go into the community to make Trinity Lutheran Church known? So as a result, and I've got it in here, we brainstormed. We looked at Lutheran Social Services. We looked at Hawthorne Senior Center. We looked at an organization that bags food. And you're going to see some presentations to this later in today's meeting. And we also looked at Stephen Ministries and reintroducing Stephen Ministries. When we went to work, we put a lot of time in this. We had representatives from these organizations come to our meetings and tell us what they have to offer and how Trinity can participate. How can we partner? Because one of our thoughts was, why should we reinvent the wheel if there's already an organization in place? How can we partner with that organization, mirroring what we did with Habitat for Humanity? Habitat was already in place. A number of years ago, the 13 churches pulled together and we built a home. And from that point, we now have our ministry with Habitat. And so with that, we're looking at doing the same type of thing with these other organizations. And that was the direction. We also are aware as a committee that millennials may not be interested in coming into a church to get worship, but they are interested in service. And so one of our reasons for focusing on that age group or that demographic is because if we provide avenues for service, community service, and advertise it outside our doors to get people to come and participate with us, rub shoulders with Trinity members, as we feed the hungry, or as we bag food, or as we do as we do a walkathon, or whatever it is we do, we can be the love of Christ in those unchurched lives. And through that provides the opening for which we can invite them to our church. They can see what great people we are, which we are, and what a great church we are, and how non-threatening we are, and that we're not hellfire and brimstone, and that we just love you and please come. And so that is the methodology of our thinking in terms of reaching out for the outreach portion of things. So Greg will bring up these motions that were passed by council based on recommendations of the committee. And also one of the things we did, and it'll come up later in today's meeting, is the committee looked at our current vision and mission statements, and we basically tweaked them, we reworded them. But another thing that we noticed was that we didn't have any stated core values. And so the committee came up with our core values, and our core values are love, grow, serve. But if you look on page 25, it defines what those core values are. And the idea with this is, with this mission statement and the vision statement and the core values, that anything that Trinity does, that item is going to be focusing in on one of those core values. Not just let's get together and have a good time type of thing, but how are we addressing the love part of being a Christian? How are we helping each other grow in Christ or introduce them to Christ? How are we serving God in the things that we do as a congregation for fun and for service, and in every area of our being to just be completely enveloped with this love, grow, serve attitude. We had even we recommended to council, they didn't pass it, was that we get t-shirts, bright colored t-shirts that say grow or love or serve, and maybe a little Trinity emblem that we could wear, at events and that sort of thing. But they didn't buy into that one, so that won't be voted on today. But anyhow, so that is basically what the committee's been doing. We meet about twice a month for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and we're still going at it. We have other things that we're looking at as well as these things. We're looking at the structure of the worship service, the sermon series that we're talking about for pastor to do. We are still exploring the idea of perhaps having a guest speaker come, as a guest speaker, teacher, or preacher come once a month or quarterly or whatever, and preach from the pulpit. Gives Pastor Becker a break, but it also allows the congregation to hear a new voice and a new perspective on the gospel or the lectionary. The other thing that we are looking at is also, and I think Shirley will bring this up, but we're looking at also the structure. I know this isn't part of growing the church, but it's kind of looking at the church as a whole, and that is the structure of our leadership, the set of boards and committees, and how many people we need to have. I mean, it's like, if you look at the numbers and you look at our average weekly attendance, we're so top heavy in leadership and not enough Indians, if you know what I mean. So we're looking at ways that we might recommend to the church, the congregation, on how to restructure perhaps our leadership. And then lastly, one of the things that we have talked about, but we aren't there yet, and that is, introducing a small group ministry. If the church decides to go with the Stephen ministry, that is a way to introduce a small group ministry, but they can be two separate things. So we've been busy. We've been really putting our feet to the pavement and really trying to come up with really good ideas, but we know none of them are going to be an instant fix for this congregation. But with God's guidance and direction, I think we're headed in the right direction in terms of growing our church and the mission of Christ. Thank you.